Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan. This is the Lansing, Michigan outfit's fourth studio album, released on the 12th of May via Wax Bodega. Why Would I Watch consists of 12 tracks, clocks in at 37 minutes, and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2020's You'll Be Fine LP.
The You'll Be Fine LP has some of like the most memorable artwork of any album. Like it's crazy that I can immediately close my eyes and like see the entirety of it.
Well, close your eyes.
Yeah.
Explain it.
Yeah. Girl sitting, face missing.
No.
Am I crazy?
No. Well, I mean, like, it looks like a dude in a hat. It's an invisible figure.
Oh my God.
They're wearing a hat.
Oh my God. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Wasn't there a dog?
Hold on, you're right. There was a dog.
You're talking
one
about
of the
this
least
artwork.
memorable artworks I've ever imagined
they're
in
wearing
my whole
like
life.
they're floating glasses. There's a red cap or a red sweater being
What a
worn.
wild way to start.
You're such a fake Hot Mully fan, bro.
I'm the fakest Hot Mulligan
What's
fan.
your
It's
deal?
not
What's
even
your
crazy.
problem?
I'm gonna try to.
They're gonna write a song about you.
I'm gonna try to walk this back for the entirety of this review.
Do you like the artwork for the new one?
I don't know what I like anymore, honestly. I don't think I have like a strong memory for things.
The fuck?
I'm thinking back to the first Hot Mulligan album where it has like the microphone on the ground just laying and it's all taped up.
Yeah, it's a good one, right?
It's fucking crazy.
Save your existential crisis for after the review, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Hot Mulligan.
Hot Mulligan have crafted what I think is a masterpiece.
They've done it again.
No.
They've done it for the first time.
Yeah,
Draw your line in the sand. Tell them.
This is a definitive album. This
Why?
isn't the last record. This is definitive. This is all right. You want me to get into it? Because I got a lot of fucking thoughts about this. So if you want me to jump right to everything I think about this record, by all means,
Quick before they go on another hiatus.
I can do full diatribe right now. First thing I wrote about this record is that it's a pop punk read along. Because I really think that...
Expand on that, yeah.
I really think that the best way to experience this record is to sit there with the lyrics in front of you and, like, really, really, like... It's almost like I have to read them to hear them in a very bizarre way.
Sit there how? Do you have to sit a specific way as well?
Like I had Genius opened up in front of me so I could follow along with the songs as I was listening to them, because I just thought there was so much value specifically in the words of this record and the overall, like, it's like, for me, so much of the texture comes from the lyrics, and I think this is a weirdly specific thing to this band, because I don't do this with a lot of bands. Like more often than not, I do not circle back and spot check the lyrics in a way that I read this Hot Mulligan album like it was a book.
I think it's because there's a little bit more than meets the ear.
They feel critical, like they feel extremely important. Like if I don't know every word, then I feel like I'm actually not experiencing the album properly.
I think on the surface, like, you can turn this album on and not listen actively and miss out on a lot of things, is what you're telling me, and I agree about that. Because on the surface, this is a pop punk album with, for the most part, throughout, a real breakneck pace. It's got really frantic and vibrant guitar parts at times.
That pace
There's
is
a ferocity
there to save you, by the way.
Yeah.
Because when it disappears, it is the most, like, emotionally damaging experience that you're going to have this year, aside from, like, a Sleep Token, for example.
Yeah. There's a moment on this album where they pull the rug out under you, and the floor is lava.
It's
Sam.
Actually cruel. Like, you
so
don't
cruel.
realize, like what a gift those like up-tempo riffs were in the way that they masked like how deeply emotionally devastating Hot Mulligan can
But
be.
it's not just that too, because like it's also masked by the ferocity of the vocals at times as well, and how some of it is like very anthemic. But then you're right, you sit down and you just actually peel back what the subject matter of the song is and what the specific lyrics are within that same song, and it's suddenly a whole different experience than...
For what it's worth, I think we're very good at communicating the emotional intensity of all the songs through our vocal delivery. I just think that when we tie them with the general style of Hot Mulligan, similarly to how this band creates music videos, it all feels like masks and mirrors to try to like divert your attention, because when they let you sit in it, once again, it's almost cruel.
Yeah.
Because a song like Betty is more than I can actually handle.
Betty is fucking
Not to jump ahead.
hard to sit through.
Not to
Betty
jump
comes
ahead.
in about halfway through, and I mentioned earlier, like, yeah, all these songs have, again, for the most part, a real breakneck pace. And then Betty rears its hauntingly beautiful face, its head that you never want to see again, and delivers to you, the listener, an acoustic, a very sobering acoustic experience that retells the experience of losing a pet, or in this instance, pets. I believe 2 pet rats. I'm not 100% sure, but what sort of animal it was is arbitrary here, because it's relatable for anyone who's lost a pet to listen to these lyrics, and you can really put yourself in the shoes of the storyteller here, or the singer, and it's just such a heartbreaking experience. It's such a devastating song.
It's I know you say anyone can put their shoes, but I think there's a specificity to the experience of the individual in this record.
Yes,
and
that too.
How
That too.
few, if any, good things they have in their life, and then having to learn about the loss of Betty is just like we're mounting. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, okay, so you know what's interesting?
You were already feeling for the artist,
right,
and like
right, or the individual in which the artist has written a narrative for. Like, I don't know if I can place any specific person in the shoes of like the main character of this record, though I'd like to assume that it's based off of
I think
some level of a personal experience,
I think
or
a lot
like
of this comes
secondary
from personal experience, because I think so. This song is, we're super sad about the pets being dead. Then a couple of songs later, we want our mom dead because they're a really shitty person. And we're mad that we even share any physical...
lead single off of this record, for the record.
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little fucking irked that Drink Milk and Run's not on this.
I felt the same way, but like...
It's not even that old of a song.
I felt the same way initially until I really began to the best of my ability, understand what the story this record was telling, in which case now I don't feel like you need to add or take anything away. But you're right. When I looked at that track listing, I was like, where the fuck is that gem from last year? Like, why would you not put this on here?
Just an easy, like, win. Just
Right. Another aside I had is I also wrote down that I thought this was so I thought this is a pop punk album to read along to, but it's despair to sing along to, and Hot Mulligan are one of those like exemplary examples of pop punk bands telling you how they feel in the saddest, most tragic way imaginable, and you really rolling your windows down on a nice summer day and singing along to it.
I think this band is self-described, their genre, as emo pop punk. And I think that's hitting the nail on the head and continuing to pound upon that nail.
Earlier you mentioned, you know, it's funny. You said I almost inadvertently hit the nail on the head there in theory. You were talking about, hey, I'm not sure, like, is my biggest frustration with this record, like you mentioned earlier, I don't know if Betty's about like what animal exactly or how many animals, right. My biggest frustration with this record is I think it is so rich with its storytelling that in instances where I don't feel like I'm sharp enough to pick up the exact meaning of the songs, I become really aggravated with myself because I enjoy breaking it apart so much, and hitting those walls is immensely frustrating because I think that deciphering this album is one of like the best parts of it. Like taking that story and sort of interpreting it and like picking it apart and kind of like growing to understand kind of like the story that's being told here. Mm-hmm. So like to the best of like my capability, I feel like this album is talking about an individual who is sort of like trapped in a pattern of addiction, alcoholism specifically, that they are in by virtue of being a product of their environment, which is to say that like their parents or a parent is an alcoholic, that their sibling is an addict as well. And it's almost like a destined to live this experience type thing. And that's sort of like your setting. Like that's your table setting. And then for like the rest of this record, you're just sort of living in the shoes of that individual. And it's such a never ending tragedy. And I like my heart really aches for like the person that this album is sort of like describing, and they're like their day to day. I mean, for like big picture from like start to finish, it's like, okay, yeah, like my family of alcoholics, like this is my interpretation, by the way, I turn into an alcoholic and then I get stuck in this cycle. And even though I have these moments of self-awareness, I almost like can't or won't do anything about it. So I keep falling into that same pattern over and over and over again. Right. And there's like a real sadness to it because like in the same way that like, you know, you can relate to somebody who's lost a pet and or be that individual. You can, you know, many of us can probably also relate to knowing someone who has an addiction problem and being able to maybe not necessarily relate to that individual, but having like witnessed that experience as well. Yeah. Right. And like the lyrics on here are so vivid and so specific and so like good at describing every individual experience. It's just like ironic because the song titles feel like such throwaways that everything else seems so particular
in a really glorious way.
Mm-hmm.
There are some absolute gem song titles on
song
here.
Titles. Do you want to call out a few of them?
Oh my God, bro. So John the Rock Cena, Can You Smell What the Undertaker? Closing track on this album, fucking insane good. And then I would be remiss if I did not point out that there is a song on here called Cock Party 2. Better than the first, in parentheses.
Schmacked My Head Off was one that really stood out to me as well. I really enjoyed that. So it's like, I just sort of like wrote down like thoughts I had as I was listening to this. I was like, okay, all right, so I'm listening to And I Smoke, which feels like it's touching on that alcoholism, and it's almost implying like an alcohol-induced psychosis. There's a line in there.
Wouldn't it be touching on that we also have a tendency to smoke?
There was a line in there in particular. There's somebody in the room with me making small talk that really sort of like ingrained this idea in me that we were sort of speaking to a psychosis. And I had already like really cemented the idea that like the true addiction at hand is alcoholism, even though we speak a lot about smoking. I think most of that feels like it's centered around like cigarettes.
I know.
Okay, fair. The song is called what it's called. kind of almost talks about that alcoholism, almost like blurring the entirety of your existence, right? Like a day, a year, the span of your life is almost like gone in this alcoholic stupor, which plays into No Shoes in the Coffee Shop, which maybe one of the most tragic songs on this record outside of Betty, which like frames the idea of buying a camera to help you remember everything because you keep blacking out, but then being too scared to go back and look at those memories and seeing like who you really were in those moments. It's like there's a darkness here that this album really like dives into.
Not to like make light of that, but it's funny the idea of buying a camera as if we don't all have our own personal cameras in our phones and can probably still use it when under the influence, like as far as taking a photo goes.
Fair. Valuable aside. Fair.
It's like you're already paying for a phone bill. Why are you paying for a camera now? But putting in money towards Polaroids, like that shit costs a little bit.
Gans Media Retro Games is a very haunting track because I feel like it's maybe the grandest moment of like self-realization. And I in a sense, I almost don't know that, like, this is one of those tragic records. Is like, I don't know if we ever, like, really break the pattern. Like, by the end of it, the final closing track on this, John the Rock Cena, is maybe for me the hardest to break. The one I feel like would really tell me the ending to the story, but I can't quite, like, I'm not quite sharp enough to decipher it.
You're telling me, having heard this album a couple of times, you've yet to crack the code.
Yeah, which is interesting because I feel like ultimately it like really pulls me back in that sense that like I want to go back in and spend more time with it very specifically because I feel like I haven't fully cracked exactly like what the start to finish like story or maybe overall like grander thought here is or how it ends like it really it needles at me, you know what I mean? That I don't know that I've fully like figured it out yet. Like grander picture, like I really like this just general, like every song on the record just feels like it's building and building and building and things keep getting more dire and we're following like that journey. It's for me, what it feels like is it's like the journey to rock bottom. You know what I mean? And by the end, I don't know if we spring back up from it or not.
So in here, do you mean like we're left on a cliffhanger? Like, what do you mean by that?
That's just it. I don't know. I don't know if this is a hard end or if we're coming out the other side.
Well, I was going to ask, like, do you think part of that could be that it's intentional, or that alternatively this is a story that's still writing itself and that maybe there's...
I hadn't considered that. In theory, it could be very much that.
Yeah, and I know that, like...
The final track sort of speaks...
There well could be a conceptual nature to this album, but part of me thinks that this is
conceptual
more of
in a sense that maybe it's not a direct example
maybe
of
it's
like
not
an
about
actual...
one of the members of this band, or alternatively that maybe it is, and that we don't know the conclusion of this story because it's a story that's continuing to write itself, where this is just the chapter it's leaving us on, but the book is not over, obviously.
That's a fair point. Ultimately, I just think it's a masterfully written record. And even if I can't literally relate to a lot of it, I can relate in a sense because of how well it's conveyed.
Yeah,
so
they convey
I
the
feel
emotion
as if
of it all really well.
I'm put through the experience by how well they convey. I really didn't think I was going to come on this episode and say I've heard two of the best albums of the year, but I can easily say that this is 5 stars as well for me. I think it is a brilliantly executed, absolutely like stunningly good record, especially within what I would say is the pop punk genre, I guess. Like I don't think, like, there are a lot of bands that I feel like people speak to how like emotionally heavy they are and how listening to them like takes a real toll on them. But I don't know that I've had that experience with any of the bands within like this breadth of like the sort of pop punk Midwest emo-ish side of the scene in the way that I have had with Hot Mulligan in this record specifically.
I'm mostly there with you. I think as far as ratings go, I'm not at a 5. I'd love to give it that, but this is closer to maybe like a 4.5 for me, which is still really good. I had a really great time with this record when it allowed me to, which is most of the time. But as far as like, I always hate saying stuff like that when the subject matter is so heavy. It's a really well written record. It does a lot of what I look for in music, which is be vulnerable, be personable. Like, let me actually be able to, I don't know, identify who the musician is that wrote this material. It's not just
have
like
something to say.
Yeah.
Have something to say and be able to say it in a way that I don't feel like I've heard it a million times over. You know, I feel very much about this record that I do about the Water Parks record that just came out as well, where I feel like there's so much individual personality there that it for me, that's what separates it from everything else.
Personality. That's 100% right. What I can definitely tell you is that you'd be missing out if you did not listen to this new Hot Mulligan album. So I really do implore everyone to go check it out. It's a really good one. I'd like to personally keep spending more time with it, and you know, of course, we'll see. But could be a 5. I'm not ruling it out. But right now, here in this moment, handful of listens under my belt, it's a 4.5.
Fair.
Really liked it. Hot Mulligan rock.